Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Talks with Taeler Hendrix podcast. I know you guys are getting sick of hearing me say it, but every week I say it because every week I mean it. I'm very excited for this week's guest. I've seen her all over social media. I love her vibe. She's one of your favorite members of Vince Russo's The Brand. She has been on shows like on TLC, CMT, CBS. She's a kick-ass, well-accomplished and traveled musician. She has been in the pro wrestling industry. She is a model. She is a writer. She is everything that is just the art inspired. So please join me in welcoming Goldilocks. Hello, thank you for coming on today.
What a nice answer. That was great. And I'm feeding back. Is it mine that I need to go get headphones?
I don't hear it, so maybe.
Check it out. No, it's good. How are you doing? Thank you for that lovely.
Good. I am so excited to have you. Every time I see you on social media, I'm like, this woman is just, I'm like, I don't know, just your vibe is like totally meshing with my own. I love seeing you interact on social media.
You're super sweet. I was going to say, like, you're either intoxicated or drunk or you need to get out more, but I appreciate that. I'm just kidding.
You know what, for me, I've been in so many environments over the years where it was just so toxic and I didn't feel like I could ever be myself. So now I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to be a ray of sunshine, even if I don't feel like it, because why not? The world has enough negativity as it is, so why add to it? Just be yourself, be free with your authenticity. So that's what I do every day.
I got a lot from the interview that you did with Hannibal and just, listening to your story. And like, I got to tell you, there was some things that you said in there that literally like made me sad. Like I wouldn't have tolerated like people not being, and you were so gracious about, not crapping on people and, people can read between the lines, but like, just there was a lot of girls that weren't necessarily nice to me, but I don't even care because they're not on my radar because there were so many that were, but it hurt me to hear some of the things that you said, like it hit my heart. So I wish I would have been around in those days because like, I've never really tolerated any bullshit from anybody or cattiness, or it's just like there's a way to shut that stuff down. And I'm sorry if anybody wasn't like completely 1000% receptive to you or as kind as they could have been.
You're gonna make me like cry.
Like, no, yeah. I would have beat the shit out of some people, and even though I'm not like as big of wrestlers as they were, like I don't ever like to have anybody picked on or anything. Like that's just like that's a real thing for me. So it made me cry to hear your story just on Hannibal. Like I could tell like stuff that upset you. And and even talking with Francine, like when Francine cried on my podcast because.
Okay. I don't feel as bad then. I'm over here like.
But just listening to people making making fun of her for being too thin. My God, anybody would die for a body like she has. And like who would mock somebody for like being like thin and banging it? And I mean, the poor girl did everything she could to eat what she can, but she can't help it that she's not a fat piece of crap like the people attacking her. That would have lasted for like 2 months around me. Like literally, I know your experience with the martial arts and just everything that you're doing, but I'm not trained, but I knocked the crap out of like a lot of kids growing up, usually kids in the LGBTQ community that were being picked on. Like it was just nothing for me to beat the living shit out of anybody that was calling them names and everything. Cause most of those kids back in the day were so docile. There was no culture for them to be who they felt like they are. And I just was like, I paid my own money to go to my schooling and the private schools that I went to, I with my modeling money, so I wasn't taking any, like if a teacher let that happen in a classroom, like I was going to like knock over a desk or knock somebody over, and constantly getting sent to the principal's office. And I'm like, what are you going to do? I'm paying my own way. I'm the only kid in this entire school who is paying their own way. Like, stop me, and maybe you should instill some kindness and some authority in a classroom and not having some kid being called, it rhymes with maggot. That's not, we're not tolerating that stuff. So funny story about that sometime that I'll tell you, but I'll let you lead as I'm overhauling your podcast. My bad.
Not at all. See, for me, when Russo asked me about this opportunity to do this podcast, I was already kind of flirting with the idea of doing a podcast. And I was just like, this is a sign. This is a sign I'm meant to do a podcast. And for me, I really believe in signs. I really do. I'm very like, into the universe, whatever. I don't know, the hippie in me. But I was like, I want to help other people be a part of somebody else's survival guide. And that's exactly what you're talking about now. Like you made me tear up because all those things you're talking about, I didn't have that. I never had that, not from day one in the business and not even today.
Dude,
that is so rare.
No, like seriously, like why didn't any of those bitches, like I'll say it, why didn't they, you said, no, I didn't know how to do my hair, my makeup, and there's all these, why didn't they sit down and show you how to do it? Like that's.
Some did. Like, for example, I learned about how to cut the elastic off of the top of Capezio fishnets from Mickey James backstage at TNA. Because she was like, girl, let me show you this trick real quick. I didn't even know about Capezio fishnets until Christy Hemme was like, hey, you're on TV now. This is what the girls do when they're on TV. So I learned that little tidbit from her.
Okay, so Christy did help you.
Yeah, she helped me that one time. And then Sojo Bolt, former TNA Knockout, actually sat me down one time. It was like, Taeler, now that you're at OVW, we're going to talk about what it means to be on TV, okay? And she was like, on TV, we wear lots of makeup because you needed to show on HD cameras for people way up in the nosebleed seats to the people in the front row. I didn't grow up with that sort of like girly upbringing. Like I wasn't allowed to wear makeup. I didn't own a curling iron. I tried to like straighten my hair with a clothes iron on an ironing board. Like ridiculous. I got grounded for wearing mascara. So I played sports. I read books. I was like this goth, nerdy, hippie kid that played hacky sack, and I was on the debate team and in bowling club. Like that was like the kind of person I was. I was like a floater. So I fit in with everybody, but I never really had a home anywhere. I played varsity sports, but I was on the bowling team, and I was in the photo club and drama club and everything. I fit in with everybody, but I didn't really fit in anywhere. I think you understand what I'm trying to say. So I never really felt like I had a home, but I always loved wrestling. I always loved acting. I always loved traveling and performing. So wrestling was like the mecca. I fell in love with it instantly. The characters, the glitz, the glam, the hot bam, So, but, wrestling is its own world. There wasn't a lot of people who wanted to stick up for me and who would, put their career on the line. When I was witnessing harassment and experiencing it, a woman told me to keep my mouth shut. That was what I was around since I was 17 years old. I was in wrestling before I got to go to prom, before I had my own car, before I got to graduate high school, So I was too young, I think, for this sort of business. And I think that that's something that you can speak to because you've been in both, and you've been in the music industry, you've been in wrestling, you have seen so many things, and you've also donated to a lot of charity causes with your own talent. And you've also created awareness for a lot of things that a lot of people, if it doesn't affect their daily life, then they don't really educate themselves on it or become aware about it. But then there's also those people that once they are aware, they don't do anything. You were kind of the opposite. You were like, I see a problem, I'm going to address that problem, and I'm going to do it in my own way to try to make it better. It's been my experience that I haven't met a lot of people like that. So there's been some people to help along the way with little things, but to actually stick up and say something, and that's also men and women. That's not strictly a female thing either. Like I've seen from men and women.
I think I'm feeding back. Maybe it's just when you're talking.
Uh-oh.
I just don't want to ruin your podcast. It's good. I think when you're talking, I need to practice shutting up, which is a thing I need to work on because it feeds back when you're talking and I talk over you. So I'll keep in mind of that. I started doing modeling and commercials when I was 3, and that does something to you psychologically. And if you have a good foundation and a great family, which I did, even though we had our problems, but I had really good, solid folks bringing me up. And I had an older mom who was 45 when she had me. So, I was taught to not have sex until you're married, or when I got older, till you're in a committed relationship. And like the reasoning behind that was to protect me from many different things, from, possibly an unwanted pregnancy. If I want to do this career as much as I did, my mom said, if you have a child, that's going to hinder some of the things that you can do. STDs, even at a young age, my mom was concerned because she was terminally ill. She didn't want to see me get a disease of any kind. Because of her own sickness for her whole life and being so weak and disabled. And, just the choices that she said you get hurt more if you're intimate with somebody and then they leave you. It can devastate you, and it can not pulverize. What's the word? Penetrate isn't the word either. Jesus Christ. What's the word I'm looking for when you're sitting there and you can't move? I'm blank. Paralyzed. Yeah, pulverize, penetrate, something in there. Yeah. She said it can paralyze you, so you should really think long and hard before you're intimate with somebody, because a lot of things can happen, and have your shit together. And I appreciate that. So I had a great, solid, upbringing and platform there. But when you're in modeling and in the entertainment at that age, like, it can either just go Macaulay Culkin and you just lose your mind, or you can go down the road that I did, which is you just start to realize, like, not to take things personally at all, because, the podcast that I did today with this incredible guy, which will air in a couple of weeks, I covered the same thing. And I'll make the point on yours, is that I learned when I was 7 years old, I think is when I figured it out, that I didn't get a part. And back then you got national campaigns. So you got the television commercial, you got the radio ads. I wrote and sang the jingles, which some of that was like $300,000 to $500,000 back then. Was a lot of money. It even is now, just for that portion of it. There's the billboards and the weekly circulars that would come in the mail, and just all of these things. And so you're looking at like $500,000 to $750,000 alone just for like that pot. And so, that was a lot of money for a 7-year-old. I knew it was, and I didn't get one of the gigs that I wanted. And I remember seeing the casting director later on, and I just, at 7, I pulled her aside and I just said, I want to know what I can improve on. Why didn't I get that role? And she was so taken aback, and she just smiled at me and said, Goldy, like, you didn't do anything wrong. And I said, well, then why didn't I get it? And she said, because they were looking for an overweight, red-haired, freckled little girl. And that's not you. And I was like, wait a minute. I didn't get it because physically I didn't look a part that they had preconceived in there. And then once I figured that out, 8, 9, 10, and then you start applying that to, like, why don't friends want to be friends with me? Well, because I'm a happy kid and they're not. And misery loves company, and they don't want to be around little miserable shooting pony head. And then the other thing is with guys, I would much rather somebody ghost me and not talk to me after a date than drag me through the mud and make me think that there's a chance or something like that. If I'm not somebody's cup of tea and I really care about that person, then go find who makes you happy, because maybe it's a little overweight, red-haired, freckled kid, and that's not me. And when you really start to realize that stuff, it puts you in a position of empowerment, because I've never cared what people were so cruel to me and so mean to me growing up. And I was pretty and I was successful. And it wasn't because I was the ugly, weird kid. It was because I was the opposite. And it's the same crap. It's the same bullying, or there wasn't any bullying terms when I was a kid. You just dealt with it. Kids were cruel and mean. They would pet your hair in the line at bathroom and cut it off and do horrible things to me. Did they do that to you?
Yeah, somebody cut my hair while I was sitting in class one day. Yes. And the gum on the seat, taking your lunchbox, locking you in a closet. Oh yeah, kids are mean.
Terrible. But once you don't care, then you grow up and you don't give a shit. And I love to stir the pot with things, Taylor, just because it's fun. Like, just to watch people become uncomfortable. Because I literally don't care. Like, I've got the greatest friends from high school, college years. Like, they're still my friends. Nothing has changed. They're all on Patreon. It's kind of weird with some of my college friends that are married, and I know their wives and their kids and stuff, and they're like on the bathtub tier for, sexy locks. But, it's just once you're grounded and everything like that, like I want to use every tool that I have to, like, push the unsexy things. I mean, everybody wants to talk about breast cancer because they're tits. And who doesn't want to talk about tits? Anybody that's listening to me say the word tits right now, or boobs or breasts, is probably smiling if you're a male. That's what you are. That's who you are. And we love you for that. Like, if you didn't, then you would be a gay man and we wouldn't be able to procreate. So be who you are. But, what was my point on that? Tatas, save the tatas. Like, that breast cancer is everybody's go-to, but prostate cancer isn't. per se, or child abuse or human trafficking, or the things that people are just like, that's ugly and it's uncomfortable to think about. There's really nothing I can do. Yeah, there is something that you can do. You can just have it on your radar, and you can pay more attention to little kids. Even if you don't have any, I don't have any, I'm not going to have any. I don't want any, but I want to pay attention to other people's kids, you know? So back to the story about just really figuring out, like, at the end of the day, like, who really cares what somebody thinks about you? Care what your family, if your family's good, and if they're douchebags, let it slide. But if your family's good and you've got a good core of friends, worry about what they have to think and say, and don't sweat the small stuff with everybody else.
That is some of the most sage advice that I think anybody in any sort of generation can really just learn everything from, you know. I think, like, a lot of my experiences would have been so differently if I had learned that at such a young age like you had. And so many kids don't, because especially now, because we're living in such a social media world, that and everything's so expensive that parents can't afford to parent their own children anymore. You know, the television, the tablets, the cell phones, the babysitters, the after school people at schools, and the programs, that's what's raising kids now, you know. And those things aren't going to teach children self-love like you got. They're not going to teach kids confidence. They're not going to teach kids how to define their own happiness and success for themselves, and not base their self-worth and their value on other people's opinions, which are as fickle as the weather, you know? So I didn't learn those things at a young age. I didn't learn them until this past year, you know, when I turned 30. So, but hey, you know, it's better late than never. And that's, to me, what's so great about this podcast is when you share your experience, that's going to identify with somebody that's listening and or watching, you know. And to me, that's gold, you know, that's priceless. You can't find that everywhere, because most interviews that I see are people, you know, trying to tear down other people and trying to cause drama and all this other stuff. I want to be a part of, like, a solution. I want to be a part of helping. And it's like what you said, people find something uncomfortable or ugly or unsavory, and they're just like, oh, well, I'm going to pretend like it doesn't exist. Well, if it's that awkward for you to even think about it, imagine how awful it is for the person who that's their daily reality. You know, so I agreed with what you said 100%. If you're not touched by something like autism and you don't know anybody personally who has it, it doesn't mean it's not a factor out in the world. Sexism, racism, gender gaps in pay, these things all exist. Every ism designed to make people feel small exists. Just because it's awkward to talk about doesn't mean something doesn't need to be done about it. It means that it does need something to be done about it. Abuse of any kind, absolutely. And that's what I think is so awesome about what you do, is because you're using something that you're passionate about to help other things that you're passionate about. And I think the world would be a better place if more people found their own way to do that, you know?
And I do understand that some people do need to tear some things down or, like, create drama for, like, that's their brand or whatever. I get it. It's nice when you see some people that are out there, like, if you can kind of balance it a little bit, or, you know, like, you know, somebody that we know does a thing on Sundays, which is a cool show that kind of focuses on some things that have to do with God, or, you know, the spirituality or whatever. Like, there's ways of doing it. And you mentioned autism, and, you know, that doesn't have anything to do with me, and I don't have any friends that have autism. But if I see a post that might be something that could help somebody to share it, that doesn't cost anything to do, I share it. Or if somebody's got something to donate, even if it's $3-5 or something, if it's like, it's weird if every person that I have that supports us with music right now, because we have a huge music following, and if they could just give $3 to our Patreon, you know, just that entry level, and let us, you know, correspond there and show content and create, like, that would be so amazing. But they don't. And I wish that it's the wrestling supporters that have been, like, completely carrying all of our stuff. And I love them for that. And my point in telling you that is, like, there's things like, who had her talk show, married to one of the, what's her name? Gorgeous blonde girl, was a Playboy Playmate. She had a talk show. I mean, a podcast. Oh, what's her name? She's married to, like, is it Donnie Wahlberg's wife? What's her name? Blonde, gorgeous. Son.
Jenny McCarthy?
Thank you.
No.
Yes.
Is it?
So
Yeah.
Jenny McCarthy, you know, has a son that's autistic, and she gets on her vaccine kicks where she says that she's sure that vaccines caused the autism. And what if they did? What if they didn't? Like, the stuff that people write on her Instagram is just so funkalicious that I had to go create, like, a couple of Instagram accounts just to go tell people how small their dick were, that they were commenting this like horrible stuff. Like I just like sit on the toilet when I've got really bad diarrhea and I just like say some real people because I'm like, that's my entertainment right now. If I'm not creating content, I'm going to sit on the toilet and I'm going to verbally diarrhea all over you for being so mean to a girl who's just trying to like put out a message about vaccines and they're just like, you should die. And I'm just like, what is this? Like what? Or Hannibal, I've seen some interviews where he's like, people are making fun of like the way that he talks or something. Like how little time, I mean, how little anything do you have going on if you're going to get online and like vomit verbally on somebody's feed about like they have a speech impediment or something? Like you waste of space. Like, I mean, and I would say that to their face. The only reason I don't use my own Instagram is because my band, I don't want to like get that. I don't want to like lose like momentum or anything like that. But like, just like, what's up? Like, I love calling people out on how I was at Walmart the other day. That's just the place to meet like winners. And apparently I knocked into somebody. Apparently some bitch got knocked into by me. You know, like I didn't mean to knock in anybody. Well, I was on the ground waiting for my turn to get the glass unlocked because even though Walmart is, you know, Black Lives Matter now where they're like unlocking all the hair products, that's great. But then unlock the electronics too so that you can get a phone charger. So I'm just sitting there. I'm like, if you're going to be equal, what about me? And I'm just hunkering down. And some lady just was like, he'll talk to you when he's done with me. And I was like, what? And I'm not in the mood right now. So I'm like, whoa, what happened here, honey? And she's like, you knocked into me. And I'm like, I didn't knock into you. And she's like, yes, you did. So I got up. And then she was like, and I got up, you know, and I just like, what's up? You want to fight today? I was like, are you looking for a fight? You want to fight? You want to take it outside? And she was just like, what's going on? And I'm like, because I'm in a mood to fight, lady. I'm ready for a good fight. I haven't knocked anybody out. And COVID, no fights, no brawls. Nothing, no shows. So let's take it outside. Like, let's get down and dirty. And she's like, well, and I'm like, what? Are you going to cry? Well, and then she started to cry and she's like, well, my husband's, and I'm like, oh, so you're having a bad day and you're going to take it out on me. I didn't bump into you, bitch. I said, let's just call it what it is. You're having a bad day. Well, I am. And I'm sorry. Don't hit me. I'm like, I'm not going to hit you. And I walked over to her and she like, cowered and I'm like, come here, give me a hug. I don't have my mask on, just give me a hug. And then she started to cry and I was like, all right, this is better than fighting, right? So I mean, I like to stir it up, but I always want it to end with something peaceful and good where somebody actually is going to remember that experience for the rest of their life. And maybe next time, not just shit, you don't run your mouth off on people these days. They'll pull out a gun and shoot.
Mm-hmm. That's the reality. Yeah, you have to be careful.
These people on their TikToks, like scaring people in parking lots and whatever. Don't scare me. I'll pull out a gun and shoot you. That's not, I would quit that stuff to get likes and things like this. Somebody's going to get shot, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
And then they'll find someone else to blame. I think just some people, like you said, misery loves company. And some people, they just have this propensity to just need to put out negativity and hate. And it's not even about half the time the people that they're talking about. They're just miserable in their own lives. And like you said, misery loves company. Some people, you're never going to change their mind. They're just always going to be negative. And yeah, those people can just stay away. Just
get on Jenny McCarthy's Instagram and...
It's like social media, everybody uses that as such an excuse, but social media has such a great opportunity to be such a force of positive change, but people use it to be mindless, heartless drones because they think there's no consequences. When people are killing themselves because of things like what you guys are saying, obviously there's consequences. So just stop. Like, I like to refer to it as the thank you very much, have a nice day. And I'll tell you why. I wrote a blog about it, and then I talked about it on this podcast. My mother, I thought she was nuts. When I was like 5 years old in kindergarten, I was getting bullied. They were being mean, and I came home and I told my mom about it, right? And oh yeah, I'll never forget it. She was like, well, Taylor, bullies are going to be bullies, and all you can do is say thank you very much and have a nice day, and just continue on your way and mind your business, or something to that effect.
Okay.
I thought she was nuts. I was like, Mom, I want to punch him in the face. Blah, 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 blah. Like, that's stupid. And, you know, it wasn't until years later, you know, rather recently, where I was like, Oh, wow. I had no idea like what kind of a sage gem my mom was really giving me, because she was basically saying, and not in very few words, was, you can't change somebody's mind unless it wants to be changed. All you can do is just be yourself and move forward. And negativity only gets more negativity. Hate only gets more hate. So why not spread love instead? So if somebody's being a jerk and, nothing that you combat is going to change that, you can just be like, hey, hope your day gets better, bro. High fives, and just continue about your business. And that's kind of just been my philosophy over the last few years. And I'm like, oh, wow, it's actually kind of cool. Hey, thank you very much. I'm glad you think I'm an ugly, fat, whatever. Hope your day gets better.
Was your mom Christian?
No, growing up, my sister's father was a French Catholic and my mother was pagan, and I grew up in a haunted house.
Okay.
And I went to a congregational Christian church with my aunt. So I was very religiously diversified, I guess. I was a very, they were pretty cool. They were very open and let us make our own decisions, but they kind of exposed us to a lot of different ideas and kind of let us be like, well, we're going to let you choose whatever makes sense to you, whatever you think feels right for you. So they weren't very forceful. Like, yeah, we had fish on Fridays instead of regular meat. And, my mom had her different things like staging the house, and, we had really fun things on Halloween. And then my mother's birthday is Christmas Day. So Christmas is always huge. But then, I went to church with my aunt on Sundays and got, I did like youth group and things like that. Like, I had a very versatile sort of upbringing, but yeah, that was always her. She's kind of like 70s. Kind of. I had a very 70s upbringing. So in the 90s, I was watching HR Puff and stuff, for example, which a lot of my generation has no idea what that is. Vince Russo actually bought the album, and I'm so jealous. I can't find one for under $500. And I'm just like, I want it so bad. They don't know who Mama Cass Elliott is, which breaks my soul inside. I grew up listening to Mama Cass and Stevie Nicks and, oh my gosh, I had a really cool upbringing, let's just say, but, a lot of it was very 60s and 70s based, go outside and play after your homework's done after school, but if I call you, you better come home before the street lights turn on. Like, I still had a little bit of that upbringing that kids these days will have no idea what that's like. We didn't have a computer, and I didn't have video games. I had Barbies and board games and books.
Well, you're very articulate and your vocabulary is immense. Like I'm very surprised. And the reason I asked if your mom was Christian or not was, I'm Christian, but I don't really study the Bible that much because I'm Catholic, and we just did a lot of singing and other things, and we didn't really dive too deep into the Bible. We had readings and stuff, but other religions or other Christian sects, not sex, the other sex, they dive into the Bible more. But, anybody that knows about, Jesus, like one of the things that constantly comes up in scripture is just if things weren't working out the way that he hoped that they would, or they wanted them to, just to shake the dust off, which is what your mom was saying. Thank you. Have a nice day. And pick up and move to the next town, and that there's something to be said about that metaphorically. Like if you're, even at work, things aren't working the way that you want or whatever, either look for another job or a transfer, or just deal with what you have and do your job, do a good job, stay to yourself, and then go home. You don't need to be best friends with everybody. You don't need to like everything that everybody does. Just tolerate it and be kind. And you're not going to change their mind if they're assholes or if they're small-minded. And I don't lose any sleep trying to change somebody's mind politically, or never religiously let people believe what they believe. I just set my example, and it's not always perfect, and I've got a lot of work to do, but I always would hope by my example people would ask what my story is or what I believe in. But if somebody isn't chiming in the right way, just like your mom said, just thanks and move on. It's good advice.
I appreciate that now, believe me. But back when I was 5 years old, I was like, you're crazy. You're crazy. And she would be like, Taylor, forget about it. She has a very Boston accent. I always make her sound like an old New Yorker. I cannot do my own state's accent unless I'm really, really PO'd. If I'm pissed off, it'll start coming out. But other than that, it's non-existent. It always gets her so mad because I make her sound like a New Yorker. But yeah, the thing is that I like what you're saying basically is just be free with your authenticity. That's the most power you can ever have. When you have to change who you are to, like you said, fit in with other people or fit into the environment that you're in, that's giving other people power over you that they don't deserve to have and should never have. And I see that in the wrestling business all the time. All the time. And being my own boss now is what I love about that, because my dreams are on my terms, not anyone else's. How much I'm able to put in my bank account or if I'm able to eat depends on how hard I work. I like that. I like that responsibility. I like that freedom. I like having my own power of my own creativity, my own creative juices going into my own art, the way I envisioned it, the way I believe it should be. That is power. And I think that more people should do that. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to be CEO. Some people don't want that. Some people don't need or want to own a business. What I'm saying is learn how to live your life and do your jobs on your terms. You know, because I think the world would be a better place. Learn how to define happiness and success for yourself. I think, like for you kind of, what I'm getting is that you knew what you wanted and you weren't afraid to go after it and you weren't going to change who you were to get it. And I think that that's how more things should be. Like, I think your dreams shouldn't cost your integrity. You shouldn't have to sacrifice your integrity to fulfill a dream. I don't believe that that's the way the world was intended to work. And I don't think that that's how it should work. And I see a lot of people do that. And I never want to be one of those people. I want to be able to look in the mirror as if to look back subliminally on the child that I was and be like, I got you, kid. We're going to do some epic shizit. Like, to me, that's amazing. And that's what I want to be. I want to be the adult I needed as a child. You know, I wanted to find my own happiness, not based off of a company logo, but based off of how hard I worked and the kind of human being that I want to be in the world. I don't believe in perfection. I used to be a perfectionist, and to me, I think that's just forcefully putting your own expectations onto other people that they can never live up to. To me, art is about imperfections. I think imperfections are what make us perfect for somebody else or make us better human beings in the world, because something that's imperfect about yourself is going to help you understand somebody who felt like nobody could understand them, or so forth and so on. And that's, to me, what's amazing in the world. There's only one you for a reason. That makes you a perfect imperfection. And to me, that's powerful. You know, when you go up to a table of all these people that want to act like they're better than you and you want to impress them, the best way to impress them is by being yourself. There's only one you. That's the most unique thing you bring to the table. I wish more people felt that. It took me my entire life to learn that. But now that I learned that, I'm like, yes, I will never be a drone again.
You're precious. What do you do for your CEO? Like, what are your streams of income? What do you do? I wonder if everybody watching knows what you do that you can talk about.
I am doing everything I ever wanted to as a kid. When I was 13 years old, I sat myself down. It was like a very prolific year. I was like, at 13, I was like, Taylor, what do you want out of life? When you die one day, what do you hope that you would have achieved? Like something like bizarre like that. But at 13, that's exactly what I did. And I was like, I want to be a writer someday. I love to read. I hated it as a little child, and then this one book that I've read kind of inspired me to love reading, and then from there on, it was like a big love affair with books. I always wanted to be an actress like Betty Davis. I always wanted to be my generation's Betty Davis. I found her so inspiring. I love old Hollywood films. I love music from like the 30s through the 70s. I'm really big into it. I always loved public speaking. I actually taught it to 5th and 6th graders. I took it in college. Like I said, I was the captain of the debate team in high school. I always loved traveling. I always loved airports as a little kid. I was that weirdo that would just be like so content at airports thinking, wow, everybody's lives, all these imperfect strangers, all their lives all brought them here at this exact point in time. How amazing is that? That's how I viewed airports as a little kid. And I was always great at sports. I loved sports. I played softball. I did volleyball. I did taekwondo. I did bowling. For a little bit, I did soccer. I loved tackle football, believe it or not, even though I was tiny. Loved tackle football. I just loved all kinds of stuff. I loved getting dirty in the dirt and kind of throwing a ball around. The only sport I really hated was basketball. I sucked at it. Can't stand it. Anyways, so, fast forward, I was like, wow, I really love wrestling. And it's like everything I ever loved. It's acting, it's traveling, it's public speaking, it's performing, it's writing, it's everything I ever wanted. So I was like, Taylor, you're also going to be a wrestler someday. And I always told myself, I want to go to college. I don't care if you finish, but at least try to go to college. Did that. I always wanted to be in politics. I actually wrote several speeches for some politicians. I was also a member of like an impromptu think tank, I guess you would call it. I did one of those. I worked on political campaigns like the GWSA is the Global Warming Solutions Act. I actually worked on that, and I gathered more than 10,000 signatures.
Wow.
And that was the Global Warming Solutions Act was supposed to be started in Massachusetts, and they were hoping it would be like a wildfire effect, for lack of a better term, and it would like catch on in other states. But basically, it wanted to cut fuel emissions in Massachusetts by 20% by 2020, which is crazy because that's now, and 80% by 2050. And that stuff I was really passionate about, like the environment and hunger and homelessness. And I also helped with a cheaper textbooks campaign and cheaper education because, for example, I had this one class, Goldy, that literally I needed 8 books for. And one of the books, just one alone, was $200. Like, how are broke college students supposed to do that? Like, are you serious? And for a course that you're telling me I need to take, not that I want to take it. So that was one of them. I met the people that worked on the plastic bottles campaign, which is in effect in California and has been for at least 10 years, I think. So I did a lot of that stuff. So now I'm a published author, which I'm super proud of. I published my first children's book about sloths because I absolutely love sloths. Kristen Bell, if you're listening. I love writing. So I've been writing since I was a kid. So some of the stuff I'm about to publish, I actually started in high school when I took creative writing and public speaking. I'm obviously a wrestler. I wrestled on TV. I wrestled all over the place. I'm approaching acting. I actually wrote songs for some people when I was in high school and college. So that's actually something that we can talk about in fun. It kind of crosses over. I do this podcast, my YouTube channel. I'm about to start my own cooking show. So I have a bunch of things that I'm working on that I just love. And it's all because of hard work and finding my people, which is something I talk about a lot. You know, we're not trees with roots stuck in the ground. So if you're not in the right environment, you can pick up and go anytime you want to. If you truly want to, no matter the circumstances, you can find a way to pick up and go. You know, for example, when I was on the East Coast where I'm from, I kind of plateaued. I wasn't learning anymore in wrestling. I was getting bullied and beat up in the ring. And I was like, okay, I have 2 options. I can go to Florida or I can go to OVW in Kentucky. Now, I did a training camp in Kentucky for OVW prior. And then I had not been to Florida yet, but I knew a bunch of indie wrestlers that had all moved to Florida from other places, but they weren't getting signed at the time. It was kind of like they were all just there doing the indies there and thought they were going to get signed, but it took several people almost 10 years of being there before they got signed to the WWE after moving there. So I chose to go to Kentucky. That wasn't easy. I packed as much as I possibly could into a Ford Focus. I had less than $1,000 in the bank account, my cat and a cat carrier in the passenger seat, drove through a tropical storm, broke down, slept in the back of my car in the Gulf parking lot next to a dumpster, which I don't recommend, got towed the opposite direction, needed a new alternator, then had to continue on my trip. No job lined up. Where I was living, I'd never met the people before. So not the best of choices, but my point is I wasn't a tree with roots stuck in the ground. I found a way and I picked up and I went and I fought for my dream. That's what I want more people to do. If anybody learns anything from me, I want it to be all you need is love, guts, and gumption. You need self-love to believe in yourself and to be a good human being in the world and not let the world change you for the worse. You need guts to go after what you want. You need gumption to see it through. You need gumption to be who you are. And that's all a part of being free with your authenticity. And that's my philosophy. That's the person I am. And that's the person I fought really hard to have the right to be. And I don't think I would be that person if it wasn't for some of those bad circumstances that I found myself in, because I really do think it's the bad times that really teach you what you want out of life, and it teaches you how strong you are. Like, you find out who you really are in adversity, and you also find out who your friends are. You know, in prosperity, your friends know you, but in adversity, you know who your friends are. You know, and it really taught that I'm my own home, I'm my own friend, and I need to go somewhere else to prosper and be my meet my fullest potential, I guess I would say, as a star, as a wrestler, as a human being, and as like an adult in this world. So I can look back on the kid I used to be and be like, hey, I promised you we would do this someday, and we're doing it. That's pretty awesome, kid. High fives. And so that's what I'm doing now, and that to me is amazing. Everything I ever wanted to do when I was 13, I've either done or I'm on my way to doing, and that to me is amazing. I want that to be contagious, you know. Love, guts, and gumption. That's all you need.
Great story. I didn't know that about you. So where did you end up living in Kentucky?
I first moved to Shepherdsville, which is like just outside of Kentucky on the other side of Louisville, on the outskirts. And that was not a very good living situation, so I ended up living out of my car with my cat. And then I paid for training with like one of my last $20 bills that I got out of an ATM to be at OVW at Ohio Valley Wrestling. And that's how I got my gut check for TNA. That's how WWE, you know, started discovering me and seeing me. That's how I ended up getting extra spots for WWE after TNA. That's how I got my WWE tryout. That's how I ended up getting into Ring of Honor and all this other stuff. So, you know, your story is just so interesting because when you're in it, you don't see how it's evolving. But I think to me, the best stories that you read that are the page turners aren't the ones that are perfect. They're not the ones that are scot-free going up, up, up. It's the dips and the twists and the turns like a roller coaster that makes something interesting. And my life has definitely been a crazy, intense roller coaster of stuff that most people will never be able to relate to or understand unless you've tried to go after a dream like music or acting or wrestling. You know, it's just a life that people won't understand.
No, and I'm trying to figure out, what do you have, a handheld microphone? What is that gimmick?
Yeah, it's a handheld one because I am not tech savvy yet, so it has like this like stand thingy. So I'm hilarious. I can barely download. I tried to set up like an electric fireplace and like I disconnected my electric and the lights went out and so
Okay.
they had to tell me like 5 times how to do this podcast.
I'm going to send you a link to an arm that looks like this. Okay.
Ooh, I can be fancy.
Clamps on stuff, and then you can just put your gimmick in and put all your hair ties and things on it too. So I'm going to send you a link to that.
Yes, please. But if you can't laugh at yourself, then what are you doing in life, you know?
No, your setup is really good. I'm always checking out your stuff. Do you have lights? What do you have for lights?
Yeah, I have this really fun cell phone clip light.
Okay, girl, we gotta get you some lights.
I am very simple, guys. Like what I was saying earlier, I didn't know how to do makeup. I didn't know how to do nails or hair extension. I knew zero about fashion. Like all my clothes pretty much growing up were from like thrift stores because we didn't have like a ton of money. And so I was like that weird goth kid that dressed in layers of like black and white stripes and ripped fishnet and, you know, skateboarding, sneakers and stuff like that because I liked to skateboard and play hacky sack and stuff and like music and whatnot. So I was not a tech savvy person by any means. I was not a girly makeup person. So the wrestling business is definitely a journey. But let's talk a little bit more about you.
You've got some really great people that follow you too, that I've seen, like some really lovely people, some interesting people too, but a lot of really, really, really lovely people. What were you going to ask? Go ahead. No.
Absolutely.
Talk about
I love my fan base. I think that they're so cool. There's so many different walks of life and different passions, and they're all super supportive. It took me such a long time to cultivate that sort of following because a lot of the, like what you were saying earlier, a lot of the following in wrestling for a very long time was very toxic, very negative. You know, what really hurt me was when Ashley Mazzaro passed away. That really got to me because she didn't know me from Adam, but she saw me getting bullied at a convention. And she just walked over there and nipped it in the bud real quick. And she had no stake in it, no skin in the game whatsoever, had nothing to do with her. She just happened to be booked at that convention, saw that I was getting bullied and what was going on, and like put a stop to it. And I was so sad that my phone was dead because I really wanted a picture with her and to kind of connect with her after she did me such a good deed that she didn't need to do, but she felt she had to do. And then, you know, several years later, she passed away. And why? It's because people can be so cruel. So for me to have such a positive following, I never take that for granted. I love it every day. And they give me positivity and I give them positivity every day.
Yeah,
I love it.
Very good stuff.
So I was doing some research on you, and I always knew you were very, very big in the music industry. In my opinion, I think it's awesome. I read that you performed for people like Stevie Nicks, and that was like, what? Stevie Nicks and Everclear and Seven Dust and all these other amazing bands. And Theory of a Dead Man, I'm like huge. I love their music. I saw them once live already. What were all of these experiences like for you? Because, I mean, Grand Funk Railroad got to work for like so many amazing people, opening for them and being on shows with them and stuff. That's a very diverse in music. That was really cool. What was that like for you and your band?
There's so many different answers for that. Like either it's really good or it's really bad. There's really not any in between. And you should reach out to Joe Dandino from Theory of a Dead Man and tell him that you're that we were colleagues, and say have him on your show. He's a great interview. If you not that you have time to comb my Instagram, but it's not too far down that I had him on my show, and they're not touring right now. Like, he's a great interview. You should have him on. He's great. So
thank you.
Yep, he'd be a really good guest for you. Some people are really mean and really like treat you like you're not even, human, which is so interesting because I'm pretty gifted on a lot of different things, not just music, and very intelligent and just I'm a good solid chick. And so when you're first off, you shouldn't be crappy to anybody, but like don't be crappy to me when you're gonna be calling me up and needing me for something. And that's what I always take the high road, but like I do have a pretty prominent photography company, and you can check that out, everybody, if you made it this far to the girl banter. But it's thefactoryphotography.com, and I shoot a lot of really big name athletes and musicians and artists and bands, and sometimes they're not so kind to us on the road, and then the record label will send them to the studio to get shot. No, lo and behold, it's the same girl that you were totally crappy to a few months back on the circuit. It's just kind of funny. Like they're like, oh, and they don't. It's just like, just be nice to people, There's some people in the bands, like I said, like Joe Dandino, I got to know just because he was really cool, and some of the other people were just busy, or maybe they don't have time for the opening act. Or it's always interesting because I take what I learned from wrestling, which is a really big advantage for somebody fronting and opening for 15, 20,000 people, because a lot of times they put us with a male fronted band, and like the women coming to the show to see their star who's a male, they don't want to see some girl coming before then. And you have to really warm that crowd up. Like it gives a whole new meaning to warming up the crowd or getting them ready. And you got to, we use a lot of things from wrestling. There's so many lessons that you can learn from that whole gypsy lifestyle of things that you can apply to not just music. Music is one thing. Live performance is a whole nother beast, and fronting is a whole nother beast. And just because you can go out and wrestling in front of a lot of people, I would say you're at a better advantage if you're a heel than you're a face, because anybody can go out and have thousands of people like you if you're a face. But it's like, how do you hold up when you got to get those people to hate you? And then where's the line, so that they don't kill you in real life if they see you at the supermarket? Or it's just a whole different thing. Like wrestling and entertaining is a lot different than just somebody who's streaming it and never goes out and isn't in the public eye or isn't approachable, or like you can touch them. So so many interesting people that we met along the way. Some people were just like, when you said Seven Dust, like the drummer Morgan, like he's the kind of guy that'll have I don't even drink, but after the show, that's what people do. He'll sit and have a drink with the opening act and like actually talk to them on the stage, on the drum riser, get to know them, and just be an amazing human being. Where other people are just busy, or they just want to go smoke weed in their bus and not come out. Or like I remember we opened for Willie Nelson, and it was just like you couldn't even like see the bus. There was so much smoke coming out from the bus from like his whole crew. It was just like it's just everybody's so different. Pat Benatar, Stevie Nicks, like these are legends, and sometimes they're really cool to you, and sometimes they're not. And then sometimes you don't meet them, but you hear like Joan Jett we opened for. And, I didn't get a chance to hang out with Joan Jett, but like I didn't need to know what kind of a person that she was, because it's like, she did her show on a Friday, we opened for them, and then, we stay like Saturday and Sunday maybe and play another couple of shows. And it's like you hear the staff, you hear the housekeeping crew say, screaming because she leaves $1,000 per room for her crew, and people that are working for 3 weeks are going to make what they make in one tip from Joan Jett. Wow. Sinbad, another person that constantly leaving $1,000 or more, to people cleaning up his room that he's not even in for one night. Maybe he did his show, his spot, and crashed, went to eat, and that's it. And like wonderful, wonderful people. Joan Rivers was constantly, like, you didn't even look at her without her giving you $100 bill. Like, no matter what it was that you carried for her, did for her, helped her with, she was just shelling out $100 bills, like very, very generous. So we meet some really amazing people along. I mean, there's some times when we play where we open and then we'll pick up another shift, like at the center bar or something like that. And like,
oh, who was it that gig? Who was it?
Gavin McGraw and Slash from like Guns N' Roses.
Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, they were at one of our shows and drunk as all get out. But Gavin came up, when we took our break, and he was just like shaking his head, and he was just so kind and complimentary. And he's like, "Can I talk to you for a second?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, I played in bars my whole life, piano bars, and I know what you're doing. And he said, this isn't, you're doing something different, and you're doing something really hard, and like, you're really good at it. And he was like analyzing everything, and like, again, like a few sheets to the wind, but like, he really was cool about how he put me over. And then like, not only did he put me over verbally, but like, he told me to put out my hand, and he's like, "Look, this is all I have. Like, my buddy over here is like drinking me out of house and home." Clearly, Slash you down. But like, I'll never forget it. It was $638 cash. He just stuck in my hand, and he said, "If I had more, I'd give it to you, but this is what I have, and know that I recognize you and see what you're doing and keep doing what you're doing." It was just like, he didn't have to give me any money, but like, there's some people that have come giving me 10 grand as a tip, like the artists that we've opened for that stuck around and watched, and like, this is what I have. And they literally give you, can you hear the bikes driving by? Because I live by a bike store. Yeah, that's nice. It's nice for when I do my podcasts and it's bike night. There's just been some really generous, amazing people. And then there's been some people like, and I will throw shade, and because they're notorious for this, and maybe if they hear enough times what assholes they were, but like, I was a huge supporter for Goo Goo Dolls, and we got to open for them. And I'll never forget getting ready after we were closing for them. So they did their show, and then we went on the stage after, and like, all my guys were so starstruck and so excited to see these guys. And I just remember one of my guys like passing by, putting out his hand, like, "Hey man, great show, high five." And he put his hand up, and the lead singer, just like laughed, looked at him, and just walked right on by. Like, I stepped behind and I saw him connect. It wasn't that he didn't see it. He wasn't on the phone. He didn't have anybody. There was absolutely no reason. You could have fucking put your hand out and touched somebody's skin. I'm trying to rack my brain, like, what kind of douchebag mood have I been in when I haven't been kind, or mistakes that I've made? But I watched it. And granted, maybe he was having a bad day, but that kid wasn't obnoxious at all. He wasn't obtrusive. He wasn't in the way. We were passing backstage, Biloxi, Hard Rock, back hallway, kitchen. And I was excited, and I smiled and thought to myself before that happened, I'm glad and I'm proud to be a catalyst that somebody might be able to meet somebody that's been an idol to them. And then just to watch them completely shit on them. Like, and it's not the first time. Like, I hear that all the time. It's like, you'll hear Goldy. She's bitchy, but she's got a good heart. Like, you'll never hear like, "Oh, Goldy, she's so sweet and nice." I'm not. I'm coarse, and I'm gruff, and I'm abrasive, but it's because I'm trying to do something good usually, or I'm trying to hustle or whatever. It's business. But like, I don't think I would do that. And that hurt me to see that. So to answer your question, it's been a real bittersweet mixed bag of tricks and I just met somebody the other day online that's been a childhood. I've been a supporter of theirs forever. And I reached out to them thinking big to have them on my podcast. And they were so disgusting. I was so disappointed. And it's just like, I want to shower at how, and it wasn't even that they were sexually disgusting to me. It's their ego. I just wanted to think like, I don't even think they deserve to be on Instagram because their ego is so big. I don't know how Instagram could be big enough for this person's ego. I was just like, yuck. Like, bro, you're just gross. So just interesting, the people that you meet. And I'm sure some people have met me and just thought, what a creep, You can only try to do better. But the Goo Goo Dolls one, that serves as an example of somebody not to be.
I couldn't agree more. I think everybody's had that experience at least once, where that's why they say don't meet your heroes. But I had that experience as a fan. I was wrestling on the indies for like a few months, and then I met one of my like childhood wrestling idols I was like obsessed with growing up. And then they didn't even look at me. They just took my shirt and the other thing that I had, signed it, and tossed it to their tag partner, and never once looked up at me. Didn't nothing. And then their tag partner was like, "Hey, what's your name?" Shakes my hand. "Nice to meet you. You're a fan of wrestling. You want to be a wrestler someday? I love your hair color. You know, you look like this WWE diva, blah, 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 blah." And to me, that meant the world. Like, I never forgot that. And then fast forward years later, I'm like the same locker rooms as them. So it's like, don't forget what you drop on the way up the ladder, because eventually you're going to have to come down the ladder and see who you drop that stuff on when they're on their way up, you know?
Did you put over the tag team partner when you saw them?
Oh, all the time.
Like, did you?
What's wrong with my? Okay, hold on. It's good.
Did you relay that story to them, to the good one, and say like that you made a difference or not?
I'm not sure. But I still support him on social media to this day. I think he's one of the most underrated and most talented individuals in the business. And I think he has a beautiful family and wife. So I like to see good people succeed and do well in life. So for me, I always support that. I don't know if I actually told him about that or not.
You should have him on your podcast to tell him that. That would be really cool.
That would be crazy. Be like, "Hey, when I was 17 years old, bro, guess what you did that really made a difference?"
I'm all about asking big. This
I've been asking more and more crazy people to come on. I'm trying to just keep bumping up the talent and the quality. And I think Vince has given us a great opportunity. And I didn't even realize what it was when I first got it. Because I usually, it takes me a while to figure out great things, but it is a really great thing. And we both of you think Vince, not that he's going to watch the end of your podcast because he's busy creating his own bro content, but it is a big deal. And I know you're as grateful as I am.
I am, because it's really funny. I don't know if I ever talked about this, but back in 2008, I was still wrestling on the New England Indies, and a guy named Terry. Were you there when Terry Taeler was there at TNA? Okay. So my first ever training seminar I ever paid to go to was Terry Taeler. So it was 2008, and I was still the One Girl Revolution, Taeler Hendrix. I was like this modern pop culture hippie, Goonies Never Say Die, neon color wearing character, right? And I go and I do this because, I want to learn. I want to get better. I want to learn from people that had more experience than me. So I paid to go to all kinds of crazy seminars for years. And so I did Terry Taeler's. That was my first one. And he saw me, and he I guess liked that I wasn't like covered in plastic from head to toe and Botoxed to the gills or whatever. And so he pitched me and another New England girl who was also a model to be a female version of the Naturals. Yeah. And I remember him telling me that Vince Russo turned it down and didn't like the idea. And the original pitch was supposed to be me and this other girl going up against the Beautiful People and, try to start like a trend or whatever, but they were going to break up the Beautiful People, so the angle was denied or whatever. And fast forward years later, I end up in TNA. Anyway, but it's really funny. Not a lot of people know that story. But yeah, so my first interaction, not with Vince Russo, but, bipartisan, whatever, third party relayed story, is that he turned down that angle. And then years later, he's, wants me on this podcast. But what I am appreciative of is I used to send Russo my vignettes that I was making for my YouTube channel and for my wrestling character and stuff. And I would talk to him about ideas and things like that. And he would be very cool. He would always, critique and tell me what I did good, what could be better, how it could translate from, a Titantron to in the ring, so I don't have a disconnect between the character and the films versus, in the ring, and how to make it cohesive. Like so smart. So then when he asked me to be on the podcast, I was like, yes, let me learn something new and do this. So he's always been a very cool person to give out knowledge, but you have to ask for it. He's not just going to go and give it willy-nilly. He's been burned too many times. So I know a lot of people hate him, but I've never had anything bad. and that's what I like. I like to, partner with people that help make me better and also help educate me so then I can better educate myself as well.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
So for me, I always know that as an artist, I always have certain things that are my favorite, like favorite pieces I've written or favorite matches I've had or favorite gear designs that I've done, whatever. You, as a very accomplished artist, do you have like a favorite album of yours or a favorite song that really speaks to you that you want fans to pay more attention to?
Great question. That's really cool. I'm getting ready to host a big event for the Los Angeles Tribune in a couple of weeks where I'm hosting it. Yeah, it's going to be really cool. But they're going to have us perform the next day. And my photography studio will turn that into like a live type of unplugged vignette type of room. And so we went over a couple of songs, and the one that's out right now it was nominated for a Dove Award, and it's called All to You, our current suicide prevention PSA video. Like, that song means a lot to me. I felt like it was inspired and divinely written. And another one called Today I Won't Be Afraid, which was written by basically a bunch of people that told me their story on a Friday night. We played our show. We wrote the song in the hotel on Saturday, and we performed the song on Saturday night. And, that's how great pieces of art, I believe, are made from everybody contributing. It's like you can try and make a great soup, but if all you have is, one ingredient or one trick pony, it's when people start contributing and adding their spices and their onions and garlic and celery and carrots and whatever, the old stone soup parable of trying to make soup out of a stone. And then the community came and put their 2 cents in. And then by the end of it, you took the stone out and you had this amazing soup or whatever. And a lot of our stuff gets written by the help of just people contributing with their ideas and their experiences. And those are just 2 songs that I'm really proud of. There's been, tons and tons of entrance music that I've not only sang, but written, and I ghost wrote on a lot of that stuff. So I won't get any credit for a lot of them. So there's a lot of them that I do get credit for, but there's a lot of them that I did that never will see the light of day. So a lot of the entrance music that you heard for TNA and some for even WWE that I can't really say what, like a lot of those mean something to me because I just smile, like people like that, and they'll never know that I did it or sang it or whatever, so the top 2 are All to You and Today I Won't Be Afraid. Sometimes is a good one. There's another one called Dodging Bullets that is about what I was experiencing before I got fired from TNA. It's just about, I never had any sexual problems with any wrestler or anybody in the office. It was always third party, like the investor from Panda that was bothering me and being disgusting. And I had to just keep quiet or the whole promotion would have gone under. So a song called Dodging Bullets. And then Action Trinity ended up using that as her entrance music. So, little nuggets, little tidbits and things like that. Those are things that mean a lot to me as an artist, just because they're authentic.
Now you, I read that you wrote Broken for Tara. I loved that one for TNA. Is that true?
There's so much I really want to, there's so much that I would love to shoot right now so bad, but it's not appropriate, but
that's okay.
I'll keep my mouth shut and take the high road. So I wrote it a while back. And I will say though, if anybody is making it, like, just because you have friends that don't like me, you shouldn't ignore me. Like, that's not cool. I'm just saying, like, you should always be your own person. I mean, I could be applying that to anything, but yeah. So I wrote that song a while back, and then after I was gone from TNA, they cut it up and made it into something else. I'm singing I have something broken, a little rough around the edges, and it hurts. So that cuts, like, that's about a douchebag that I was dating in wrestling at the time. And then they mixed it with somebody else that's singing some of the da, 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 da. I don't even know what they're saying. I don't know who's singing it. Everybody thinks it's me. It's not. I don't know. Maybe it's Tara. I don't know who it is. So, things like that happen all the time where you do a piece of work and then it just gets cut into something else. And if you gave up your rights to it, they can do whatever they want to do with it.
just how it goes in this business.
It is.
Shared intellectual property. That's another thing, you know, like a lot of people are super angry about what's going on with Vince McMahon. And it's like, well, you can be angry, but you're not in the business and you didn't look at their contract. The contracts are pretty tight with like what's in there and what you can and can't do. So either you take your money and get a really good lawyer, or find a friend that'll help you, or read through the fine dotted line in the red ink, because it's probably in there that says, you know, whatever he's saying right now, because it is a publicly shared, you know, organization. Like it probably is in there that you can't do that. So you can be mad about it, but it shouldn't come to as a surprise. It's probably coming up more because of the COVID and because that shareholders are losing a ton of money and they're just looking at like, why aren't we making more money on this or that? Oh, it's because this person's doing this third party, which I'm doing stuff third party too, but I try being the key word, to look very carefully at anything that I sign. And then if I didn't look carefully at it and then it comes around to bite me in the butt later on, then you can't really be mad about that.
No, and they also have to think of it in terms of not just COVID, but the fact that it's a business. You know, you signed a contract to be employed as an independent contractor by a PG, publicly traded company. So break that down for anybody that doesn't understand. It's a PG company, which means a lot of their sponsors, that's where they get a lot of their money. And their TV deal is where they get a majority of their money. So if you as the superstar are doing stuff third party on your YouTube channel, your TikTok or whatever, posting photos, if that stuff doesn't meet a PG criteria, you could potentially be hurting their business, because, you know, investors and, you know, sponsors and other things like that and other connection deals will see that and go, oh, well, that doesn't really fit with our brand, so we're gonna have to walk away. Sorry. You know, there's a reason why you get away with stuff on a WWE pay-per-view that you're not able to get away with on Monday Night Raw anymore. You know, I think that those are the dots that people are forgetting to connect. And yes, reading the contract. I was a fresh-faced 23-year-old when 22, when I got my TNA contract. I didn't understand anything. You know, I had the owner of OVW kind of look it over, and the only thing I could ask, that I knew to ask, was, is this a typical contract? You know, I didn't know anything else. You know, you're not taught that at wrestling school when you hand over money and expect them to teach you the whole business. They don't teach you a lot of stuff that you do need to know. They teach you basic psychology, how to do moves and how to wrestle. They don't teach you how to conduct actual business. I think that that's very strongly lacking. They don't teach you, you know, how to read a contract and why it's worded a certain way. They don't tell you why it's labeled an independent contractor and how much little freedom you get, even though you are an independent contractor, which technically means you aren't even a real employee of the company, but yet you're controlled like one. You know, they don't teach you these things. And then so posting, you know, barely clothed bikini photos might not be appropriate for a PG company. Doing certain things on these TikToks, which got really popular during COVID, might not be compliant with PG sponsors, like Doritos, for example. There's so much that goes into it. So yeah, I agree with you. You can't just be mad because you signed that contract. And you guys also have to understand, without that TV deal, there might be no WWE. That's a giant portion of the money. You know, so this isn't just, you know, about filling Vince McMahon's pocket. It's also about how you pay for that venue. How do you pay the insurance for that venue? How do you pay the ticketing agencies? How do you pay all the talent? How do you pay the production truck, the setup? That fist, you remember back in the day for like old school, I think Raw, I think it was, where it had the fist coming out? That is so expensive. That thing alone was thousands upon thousands of dollars, not including the rest of the production, the catering, there's just so much. All the travel expenses with the flights or whatever, there's just so much. So where do you guys think that money comes from? You know?
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons, you know, a big, you know, example for, you know, you don't really have those issues when you're your own boss. But you have to understand that you are signing over your rights when you sign that contract. So I think that you made an excellent point when you were like, well, come back to bite me. It's probably my own fault.
Yeah. And another thing that I'll say about that is, when I see people telling their stories or Me Tooing or speaking out or whatever, you know, I go look up their story to see what happened to them. And if every picture that I see is them standing there nude, then sorry, but I can't all of a sudden, like, you're diluting your own point. You're diluting your waters. It's like, I wish more women would, there was one person that I was like, wow, this sounds like and then every single thing I saw of her was her nude, was her getting things shoved up her crotch, was her wrestling, nude. And I'm like, you don't want people to see you as an object, or then why are you like, walk your walk is what I'm saying. Be solid. If you want to do all that stuff, then don't be surprised that that's how men view you. Okay. Like, that's just how it is. And if you're presenting yourself in industry standard, blah, 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 and something happens to you, well, then there's different categories of things, and you just can't free willy-nilly do whatever you want to do and then think that consequences aren't going to come with it, whether it's what I'm talking about there or free agent or independent contractor. Like, you can't just have your cake and eat it too. You gotta and there's plenty of things that, like, I don't get credit for lots of stuff because I didn't take the time to read my contract. And I also didn't have a lot of problems with sexual harassment back in the locker room because I didn't ever put myself out there just was no climate for bullshit with me at all. Like, I just didn't. I'm not saying like I'm better than you or not. I'm saying I called out other girls and said, why are you doing that? You're hurting what we're trying to do to be professional and be taken seriously and be an equal. The guys aren't sitting around with their dicks out. They're not. They might be in private quarters and doing things but that's behind closed doors. What you're doing is you're setting us back for being equal. And like, a lot of the girls didn't see that. I would walk right up to them and say, please put some clothes on. Please get out of that guy's lap. Please stop doing this backstage in the locker room. Like, this is not how women conduct themselves. If you want to get a hotel room after the show and go do whatever you do, or go to the ale house or do this, fine. But like, this is a place of business and I'm working here and I'm a female. And what you're doing is making me feel uncomfortable, because if shit hits the fan, I have no leg to stand on because I'm guilty by association. Like, you don't realize what you're doing. So, and I'll just say that, like, I have a hard time with some people complaining about stuff, and then you go look at what they're doing and they're not making good choices. I'll just leave it at that.
I've seen it firsthand, that's why I actually had another podcast before this, and we talked about how, speaking out, or Me Too, or even feminism as a whole, it's not about, oh, we are women, here's war, down with men. No, that's extremist, and extremism of any kind ruins everything for everyone. For me, these are, I feel like if men are doing bad things, it makes the good men look bad. And women, if you're allowing these things to happen and you know about it and you don't say anything, you are also a part of the problem, not the solution. And you're probably not saying anything because you're indirectly benefiting from it. So you don't want the challenge quote status. So you would rather that girl fall on her own sword instead of standing up with her, even though what she's saying is the truth. I've seen it go both ways. There's no excuse. I don't believe in the phrase boys will be boys, just like I don't believe girls will be girls. People change depending on who they're around. I've seen it every show, every day, every environment I've ever been in. And for me, if you have to do that to survive, you're probably not in the right environment, and I've seen that a lot. I saw people treat me different when I was wearing a revealing dress. My body is my own. I've been body shamed for being fat or curvy. I've also been body shamed for being too skinny. And that's when I took to heart a quote from Jennifer Aniston about, she's been this, she's been that. She's been hated for this, but then she was hated for being the opposite, and blah, 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 blah. You just got to be yourself and love yourself. And I really took that to heart, but it took me a long time to learn when I have everybody and everyone having an opinion about me, about what I wear, about my body, about my makeup, about how I look, about my teeth. Somebody said I have a bad gum to tooth ratio like a horse. And, Gina Davis would be basically ashamed of my mouth. And I had somebody else say, I'm not even as good looking as the ratty daughter who works at her father's corner store. I'll never forget that one. Then I have someone saying that I look like a starved Ethiopian boy. Someone said that to me when I did gut check. And then I had somebody say to me, gosh, girl, what kind of road food are you eating? You look like you gained 70 pounds. I remember somebody said I looked like a fat redheaded tub of lard. Like, like so many just random things. So it's like you kind of just have to own yourself, own your own actions, own your consequences for those actions, but also learn and be better, and realizing that these movements that are happening, it's not just for women, it's not just for men, it's not an us versus them. It should be, in theory, for the betterment of everyone. 9 times out of 10, when people come forward, it's not for attention. You get bad attention. You get like people sending you death threats, people trying to find your address, people just tearing you down in every fundamental way possible. So I think if bottom line is people just do the right thing and call it out, like what you were saying, right from the get, so many industries and the world as a whole would be a better place, and then you wouldn't have to worry as a parent as much about your child even having dreams of success to begin with, because then you won't have to be afraid of the people they'll encounter on their way to fulfilling their dreams and being successful. But I agree with you. There is a certain sort of decorum that comes with being professional, and I've seen people use it both ways. And I agree. There's for every action, there's a reaction. For every thing that you do, there's a consequence. So I can't disagree with that. And I can understand why people would want to hate on that. There was a lot of people that hated recently on Malaya Hosaka for, speaking out about, shadiness that she found from people in the speaking out movement. And I didn't disagree. And she was getting crucified by a bunch of women. And it's like, a lot of you women are, jumping on the speaking out train now, but where were you guys before?
And if you want to just even keep going deeper, and like as a woman,
when somebody says, let's talk about a business deal, and I say, great, let's do it. Because I go to conventions for TV all the time. I go to Real Screen. A lot of great things happen at the hotel lobby bar. It's huge. It's in like a beautiful, very expensive hotel, and they book out the whole hotel and you're locked in basically. Like if you leave, if you don't have a wristband, you can't come back in, and tickets are like $4,000 a pop, 5, it's big. It's a lot of money. It's like 10 grand to go to these things by the time you lock up your airfare, your hotel, and all the different convention, entrances and things that you pay for. And a lot of great business goes down in the center bar, and all the real businessmen stay at the center bar. And then there's always that guy that'll say, well, let's go talk about it more and let's go have a drink. Oh, where do you want to go? Well, just come up to my room. And I just laugh and say, you know what, bro, if you can't
talk to me here,
then it's probably not what I'm looking for. But I see other girls go, and then this is what happened to me. And they're like, what do you think is going to happen when you go up to a guy's room? Or, you look back at the Me Too stuff when it started, and I mean, there's clips from Courtney Love on the red carpet talking about what's your advice for upcoming, actresses, and she just basically looks right at the camera and says blah 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 blah. And if Harvey Weinstein invites you up to his private suite at the Four Seasons, say no. Like, I mean, this is a well.
I had no idea.
So what? Oh, look it up. It's years before this happened. She says it right on the VH1 carpet. She says, if Harvey Weinstein invites you to his suite at the Four Seasons, decline. Like, I mean, everybody knows it. So like, are you surprised when you go to somebody's room? First off, you shouldn't be going to their room. If they're going to take you seriously as an actress, then, and I get it, you'll do anything for that part. Okay, well, if you'll do anything for the part, then don't be surprised that maybe something gets slipped in your drink, or you get raped, or like what do you think is going to happen? That's not sitting in a public area. It's a private bedroom at a hotel. So let's play devil's advocate. Let's just play devil's advocate and say, well, maybe he just really wanted to talk to me. And okay, so it's 3:00 in the morning and he opens the door and greets you in nothing but a towel. How stupid are you? I'm just saying that becomes your choice to go into harm's way. I'd be looking at him and be like, bro, nice. Lose some weight, bro. I'll meet you downstairs. Or you know what? Here's my number. Text me in the morning and I'll meet you downstairs for breakfast at the Continental or at the buffet or the whatever. Like that becomes on me. Because we all know what's going to go down there. So no, what he's going to do next probably isn't right at all. But neither is what I'm doing. I'm not taking responsibility for something. And I am all about preventative. What are you doing to prevent it? No different than my mom at the beginning of this conversation saying, it's probably not a good idea to be having sex with somebody unless you're in a real committed relationship, because you can get pregnant. You can vulnerably be hurt. You could get a disease. You could. Preventative. So she made me think about it before I went and did something. So that's just the problem. Like now, when you have Bill Cosby, meeting in a public place with somebody and your drink's getting like, again, I'm not trying to say one thing is right or wrong. I'm saying I look at myself. When I point and blame, I got 3 fingers back at me saying, what could I have done differently to not be assaulted? Or am I on my cell phone when I leave? Am I texting when I am in a parking lot when there's clearly somebody, a predator, waiting to possibly mug me, rape me, human traffic me? Like, again, horrible if that happens to me, but what am I doing to prevent that? Am I carrying? Do I have a weapon on me? Have I taken some self-defense courses? Am I looking at my surroundings? Or am I being a dumb bitch on my phone like I see? And I'll say, hey, dumb bitch. Yeah, you. Put your fucking phone down. I'll say it. I'll say to these girls, put your phone down. What if I was somebody that was looking to hurt you? I could have just hurt you. And I yell at them. I do it all the time. And I'm like, I'm the crazy lady. You could talk about me when I'm gone, that maybe you'll think twice the next time. Because my dad was a parole officer, Taylor, and his specialty was murderers, rapists, and pedophiles. So that's what I grew up. You grew up in a haunted Halloween house or whatever. I grew up with rapists, murderers, and pedophiles. And you know what? It's all the same ammo. They're all looking for somebody that's vulnerable, who isn't paying attention, who isn't going to be loud, who's not going to be a problem. So I'm the person on the outside. If I see somebody even looking at me wrong, I'm raising my arms around like when you're doing a wrestling match and you need that person up in the nose to see what you're doing and makeup. Like I'm making a big stink so that they're like, who's this psycho? I don't want to deal with her, and and again, preventative. So all the stuff that we're talking about, all I'm saying is be responsible, be preventative, take your own action seriously, and just prevent it from even happening in the first place if you can. Yeah, bad things happen, but just again, I don't drink when I'm around people because I don't want to be I don't drink at all at all, and I don't want to be out of control. And I don't, because of live performance, because of wrestling, what happens after the matches, what happens at the gigs, what happens afterwards. I have never seen somebody drink alcohol, girl, and have some great thing come out of their mouth. I've never had anything empowering said to me when somebody's drinking. I've never had the ultimate compliment of my life being said to me. And I'm thinking, you already have no filter and you're a loose cannon. The last thing that you need to be is intoxicated and say something like, and some of those things that people said about you, those horrible slurs and shitty comments and things like that, they probably were drinking or they were high or they weren't paying attention. If they weren't, then you really got some problems, bub. But that's one of the reasons I don't want to be out of control is I already do a good job of sometimes making people feel badly. I don't need any help in that department. So it's just something that I don't do. Again, preventative. I'm off my soapbox.
I mean, I don't disagree with that. There's always ways that you can make sure you're not indirectly volunteering for a bad situation. And that's not just a female thing. I think this is gender neutral because these things can happen to men too. Growing up, they always said, watch your drink. If you're ever drinking, if you put that down and it's out of your eyesight, make sure you never take another sip from that drink. Nobody ever taught you to pay attention to the bartender. You don't know if the bartender's friends with the person that's talking to you. You don't know how often that person comes to that bar. These are all things I had to learn for myself. It's a very scary world.
Yeah, it is.
And something that you said triggered something that I had heard recently. An actress, I forget her name now, but she said it on Twitter, and she's a writer as well. And she said that for a very long time, because she was outspoken about many things, I guess, she was labeled difficult to deal with. Mm-hmm. And I could relate to that because even fans regurgitate to me stuff that they've heard other wrestlers say, and they speak it as if it's fact. It's like, but you've never been in a locker room with me, so how can you say that I'm difficult to deal with or that I'm a bully? You're hearing this like the game telephone. How it starts here is never how it ends on the other side when you play that game. Kindergartners know this, you know? But then something that this actress and writer said really made sense to me. She said, and I think that you'll agree because of what you had just said, she said, difficult to deal with in artistic industries generally means you're difficult to F over. You're difficult to take advantage of. And I much like that narrative a heck of a lot better than people calling other people bullies or difficult to deal with. Why is that person difficult to deal with? Because they didn't want to go home with you? Because they didn't want to do this, or they didn't want to do that, or they were uncomfortable with this, or they were sticking up for someone else.
Yeah.
You know, I found out that somebody was calling me a bully, and I thought that was hilarious because I was like, I defended you when you were getting bullied. I was the first one to come to your defense publicly and behind closed doors. I put myself in the line of fire for you. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. But I just agreed with what you said with, you know, making a scene so you're difficult to deal with. You're a difficult target. You know, it means you're too difficult to F over. You know, and that makes sense because you're drawing eyeballs to what's going on. I like to think of it like my dog. My dog Slinky. People laugh because he's a dachshund. You know, Slinky. It makes sense. He's a weenie. But when he feels like bad energy, he goes off, and his bark is so ear-piercing loud that it draws the attention from people within hearing range. And I like that because he'll pick up on the energy before I do. You know, you waving your arms around and talking loudly, drawing people in, and that's like the same thing. You know, you don't want to be that person. I used to be terrible with walking with my headphones on, no matter where I was, because I always like to listen to stuff. Like I listen to stuff 24/7. And then I realized one day, I was like, I didn't hear this person like walking. I'm like, that's probably bad. Let's not do that anymore, Taylor. And I haven't since, you know, the people looking down on the phones, the people with their headphones on, the people that are looking through their purse instead of already having their keys in their knuckles. There's so many little things that don't necessarily have to do with you being a woman. These are all just general things, you know. My mom taught me, she was like, if you were a boy, I would be teaching you these same lessons. When you walk somewhere and it's dark and you don't feel comfortable, why not have your keys between your knuckles? So if you have to hit somebody, it's probably a lot more effective than just your bare fist, you know. The whole drink thing, that can go for men too, you know. Basic things, you know, if somebody jumps in the car on the side of you, half the time, the person trying to abduct you in the passenger seat is not wearing a seatbelt. So why not jam on the gas and run yourself into the thing? You're probably wearing your seatbelt. They probably aren't. Like, these were basic things that my mother taught me that I was like, I'm kind of glad that she did. I think a lot of parents wouldn't think to teach that. And I think especially today with how many distractions there are, oh my God, I would rather be a person that's in the know instead of unaware.
Totally.
Yeah. Is there any advice based on all of your experiences that you would give to anybody? And it doesn't have to necessarily be for the music industry or for wrestling or podcasting, just basic life advice in general that you have found to be very helpful and very true.
Yeah, just there's something that you want to do, you have to try. There's nobody that's going to do it for you. There's no ruby slippers. You're wearing your own ruby slippers. You're already home. If there's something that you want, you have to actually try, and you will know in your gut if you're really trying or not. And I think a lot of people don't, and they try to fake themselves out and say, well, I tried. No, you didn't. Like, trying might not be a month. It might not be a year. It might be 10 years. It might be 20. I mean, I'm still trying right now. Enjoy the process of that. Like, you never actually make it where you make it. Like, I mean, yeah, maybe John Cena or Dwayne Johnson, they've made it, but they're constantly evolving and creating and shedding their skin and becoming new, better versions of themselves, hopefully. So just try and enjoy the process of life and appreciate the people that are around you who love and appreciate you, even if they might annoy you or they might not look the way that you want your friends to look or you imagined them to. Like, there's always going to be those people that are around you that really have your back. Like, concentrate on them because they'll help you with your trying and they will help you with your journey, and really appreciate them. That's my advice.
So well said. I could not agree more. A six pack of abs isn't going to make a man be loyal to you and love you the way you deserve. And by the same token, a pretty female face does not mean she's pretty on the inside. You cannot eat lipstick and, be a good person. So I really identified with what you said. And I think that, it doesn't matter how long it takes as long as you're trying. You don't want to have that sort of regret. And I don't think there's anything wrong with you still trying. I'm still trying. I think you should always be trying for something, because if you're not busy living and busy trying, then you're busy dying. I would much rather be busy living and trying as opposed to busy dying, especially in this day and age. You brought up COVID and you brought up the contracts for wrestling. I know that some people have had a little, not as much, but a little bit of extra time now because of COVID. Is there anything you got into that you may not have gotten into otherwise because you had a little bit of extra time?
Yeah, Patreon. That was Vince. Why is this feeding back? Try it again. Patreon. Vince called me up few days after March 1st when everything was starting to hit the fan, and he told me to do it, and I didn't understand it and what would I offer. And now we've got just a really, really cool community over there where it's my job to create content, which is the greatest job in the world. And I wouldn't have done it without COVID. So very blessed that opportunity came by. I lost thousands of dollars during the COVID. We lost a lot of shows, and things are very strange for performers. So a lot of things are still up in the air, but I got to meet a lot of great people through the brand, through Patreon, and through even Cameo. I got to meet some really cool people that, again, I wouldn't have had the time to think of all of the shows that are on our Patreon or conceive them or produce them. And I know that by doing those, that will attract attention for other places that I need eyes on us and me. So, there is a silver lining in it. It's not, I didn't enjoy the way that it went down, but Vince is the one that called me up. You got to do this thing, you got a Patreon, I don't know what I would do. You teach, dating advice, and you can, bro, you could do it. It's great, so I would never have done all of that if it wasn't for Vince calling me up and literally taking 2 hours of his time, which is a ton, to really make sure that I understood what it was and how it could benefit me and other people. So there you go.
Aw. I read that you were on a show called Cheapskates, and that you had a lot of advice on how you and your band kind of save money while being on the road. Is there any way you can briefly kind of translate that for people who maybe need to save money during COVID, whether they're single or married or parents who are, kind of struggling with the circumstances of the new norm?
Yeah, just don't buy stuff new if you don't have to. I mean, if there is something that you want, I think the best advice that I can give you right now is we all have phones with a notepad on it. Make a new notepad and make a thing called Things That I Need and write it down. And whatever it is that you need, whether it's a strainer for your sink, or it's a new bath brush for your back, or it's a car part, or make a list of, if it's stuff that you don't absolutely need it, it's not just an immediate emergency necessity, make a list and make it even into a game where you and friends or you and family go to a thrift store on a Saturday, or go to a pull apart for a cart. Like, you can get an alternator for $700 or $800 new, or you can go to a pull apart with a couple of tools. And if you're nice to the people and you're pretty enough that day, you can probably get them to use their tools. You get an alternator for $60 or $70. That's a huge savings. There's so many videos online that you can watch on a DIY. And if it's not like, if it's 110 electrical, you can do it. If it's 220 or more or higher, don't. But there's so many things that you can educate yourself on. You can change your lockout. Don't get a locksmith. You can, the hinges on your door. You can get some screws. You can go to a pawn shop and get some sort of power tool that you need for super inexpensive, like a drill, or some sort of saw, or a jigsaw, or a handsaw, or a bandsaw, or a scroll saw, or hacksaw, whatever kind of saw. And you can do stuff yourself, and you can even get saws at like Goodwill or thrift stores. Like, don't pay the money if you don't have to. Like, save that money for your education, or if you're that student that has that $200 book, like, don't waste money on dumb things.
Go to your Sam's, go to your Costco's, buy in bulk, be smart with your money. Save money the Dave Ramsey way is like envelopes. Like I've got envelopes hidden all over my house. Every time I get some money, I just immediately pay myself first with the $20 or $10 or $5. And crudely written on the outside of the envelope is, a new 45 because I like to pack, or, a new this or a new that, or whatever I can't get used because guns aren't something that I want to just go get. I don't want to buy somebody else's gun. I want that one. I want that one new. But anything that you don't need to buy new, don't. And don't be a freak about buying bras at the thrift store. Like I had one chick that I went out with, like I'd never. So you go ahead, bitch, buy $80 bras. I'm not. I'm going to buy $2 bras, which is on sale this week for $1. And I win because it's a brand new bra with a tag on it that nobody's paid any money. Nobody's even worn it. There's so many things you can get used. On my rant for that. There's by the pound things that you can buy. People don't even know about this. It's insane what you can get by the pound.
I could not agree more. That's how that was growing up for me. So that's pretty. I already do that.
Yeah, but why would you buy it new if you can go buy it used and it is new or even gently used? There's Play It Again Sports, there's thrift stores, there's Facebook Marketplace, there's your community Facebook. Just type in what you're looking for and it'll come up. I just sold one of my couches, for, I don't want to say it, I got it at the Goodwill for $20. I sold it for $1,600 on Saturday. I mean, that's a good turnaround. I'm not going to tell anybody I bought it for that, but I got my place is like pimped out. Like I got that picture in the background right there. You see that beautiful woman's right there?
Oh yeah.
Well, that was $600 and I got it for $5 and it's brand new and it had the tag right on the bottom of it. That's what I'm saying. Save your money and be smart for people that are really hit with the COVID. Another thing is if I can pitch really quick, I've got Amazon.com/shop/Goldilocks Rocks. Go look at the stuff on there. It's all like lower end gimmicks for podcasting, gimmicks for filming. It's got a whole books that I love section. And one of the people that I listen to is Dr. Joe Vitale from The Secret. And he's got a new book out right now, the first page. If you're broke and you're homeless, this book can show you how to make money like that. Like there's so many resources out there. There's so many things that you can do that I'm just so cheap. Like you have no idea. That's my passion.
I love it. So that show was perfect for you to go on. That's awesome. I love it. Do you still watch wrestling at all? If so, do you kind of have like a favorite brand or favorite people that you like to watch?
I do watch it. And I one of the people in our video was Maria Gomez, Diaz Gomez, and she was with 88WE and now not with them. So I'm enjoying, I guess I'm not such a horrible critiquer that I just watch it and find what I like, and when I don't like something, I go to a different promotion and find what I like there. Like I don't really sit and concentrate on the things. I think that's an idiot move to when people are like, "Oh, I hate this." I'm like, "Then why are you watching it?"
Yes, exactly.
Then go, and then what's the one that Jerry Lynn is with? What's the other promotion in Florida? The other one.
Wait, is it MLW? Evolve. Wait, no, Evolve just sold. MLW.
Whatever it is, a lot of my friends are in it. I don't even know what the hell it is. I watched that. I was glad to see Eric Young, moving up, doing his thing with TNA. I'm friends with so many of these guys still. So whatever promotion they're with, I really don't care about the promotion. I just care about the talent and how they're doing. I love seeing what AJ's got going on. I know he's got some heat right now. So I do still watch it. I don't really watch a lot of stuff, girl, like literally being a part of the brand and then doing the Patreon and then the photography and whatever. Like I'm lucky if I get to like sit on the turlet. So, and if I do, it's usually to go find Jenny McCarthy's haters and like go mess them up.
I can definitely relate. But I like to multitask and hustle. I would rather do that now than have to try to do that when I'm 75 and 80. Do it while you're blessed enough to be able to do so. I know that you don't have a lot of time and you're juggling a lot of stuff. Do you have anything that you really like to watch on like Netflix or Hulu that you want to recommend to people in their downtime?
God, no. I'm literally like trying to create stuff all the time. The last thing that I watched was Veronica Mars. I binge watched that at the holidays. One of my friends told me about it and I thought it was brilliant. And didn't she say something about what's her name? You called her out earlier.
Kristen Bell.
Yeah. Well, do you know what Veronica Mars is or not?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like Veronica Mars.
Yeah, so Kristen Bell, like I was just like blown away. And then I found out, like I had no idea that she was the Frozen voice. I had no idea that she did all of this stuff. Like, so that's really the last thing that I watched. And then my dad came to town and we watched all the John Wick movies. And we watched, so that kind of stuff. Yeah, good stuff. And the girl with the great tattoos.
I haven't seen that yet. I want to read the book first.
Okay.
But I do love the John Wick series. I got the John Wick box from the debut. They sent me a basket and it had like a t-shirt. It had a really cool treats for my dog. Like it was so cool. I felt so VIP that, they sent me a John Wick like package thing. It was so cool.
How did you get that? That's cool. What did you do to do that?
I don't know. It was a gift. So I wasn't a part of the process, but they gifted it to me and I had like a code for my dog and everything. It was like one of those like VIP boxes and I got that as a gift. I was like, oh wow, this is so cool. So my dog actually took a picture with it for like his Valentine's Day Instagram post because they had like dog treats and things because John Wick loves his dog. It was adorable. I loved it. I'm always trying to watch as much as I can because I love acting and that's a passion of mine as well as writing. So I'm always trying to watch like a different genres and different things. Like I thought Lock and Key on Netflix was brilliant, so creatively done, and I liked the slow progression. I thought The Haunting of Hill House was amazing.
Wow.
The Wrong Missy, if you need just a good laugh, was hilarious. I'm very surprised that Nick Swartzen did not win like Best Supporting Actor for that film. It was very good. Just something that will just make you laugh, like a really psychotic girl goes on a date and just like makes the guy like want to like turn off dating for a while. Just hilarious. So stuff like that. I just like to watch different things and kind of be like, hey, if you're in a mood, try this.
I like it.
All right. Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming on this podcast today. I hope to have you on and we can collab some more in the future. For fans that are listening and watching right now, can you tell them where to find you on Twitter, Instagram, your Patreon, if you have a YouTube, to tell them again your photography studio's website and where they can find the stuff for your Amazon again, and any other sort of content that you really want them to interact with, like your Cameo and more of your music, whether it's on iTunes. I know one of your albums with that song that the YWCA and Dare use, I think I saw it sold like over 400,000 copies. So where can people interact more with you and everything that you've done?
I appreciate you asking, honey. I'm waiting for feedback. There we go. It's real simple. Just Twitter and Instagram is just @ and then Goldy with a Y, Goldy. Goldilocks Rocks is pretty much everything. Or just Goldy with a Y and then just Goldilocks is for Patreon or Cameo or all of that. And if people wouldn't mind, this is a fun one because this is an hour and 40 minutes into it. A fun one is if you could go to the YouTube channel, which is Goldilocks Band. Just look it up. You'll find it. Look for All to You. Goldilocks, All to You. Just Google that and it'll come up. It is for suicide prevention. This month is Suicide Prevention Awareness Month nationally. And if you could just say, like, I heard about this on Talks with Taeler and cross promote, then that helps me and it helps Taeler out and it helps people that might be going to that video that are thinking bad thoughts about themselves and just say something kind, or just even the hashtag just stay, or say if you're reading this, you're loved. Like, so it's Goldilocks, All to You. And that's what we're promoting this month is just suicide prevention and being kind and saying something kind that might make somebody change their mind that night.
I want to add for everybody that's watching and or listening that this isn't just a trending topic for Goldilocks. This is something that she and her band are very passionate about, and they've been on this cause for a while. So I would definitely love you all to get in on this. All to You, Just Stay. You can find her on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Patreon, Cameo, and what was your photography studio again? The website?
That's just fun to go see a bunch of cool, famous people. Thefactoryphotography.com.
There we go.
Yeah,
Awesome.
It's a cool site, shout out a lot of people that aren't even on there, but like it's been a real honor to shoot that many people and that many record covers and wrestlers and sports entertainers, and it's been really fun. It's been really cool.
Well, you've heard it here. She is a photographer. She is a penny saver. She has been in the wrestling business, the music industry. She is an avid activist. I mean, it seems like there's not much that you can't do. So thank you so much for joining Talks with Taeler Hendrix. And I hope we get to collab more in the future. There's so much more that I would love to be able to talk to you about. And I'm really thankful that you were able to spend this much time.
You got it, lady. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm so happy that all of the people that follow you get to know you. You're a great, great woman.
I did not pay her to say that. For more Talks with Taeler Hendrix, please refer back to Russo's brand and search for Talks with Taeler Hendrix. You can find upcoming clips on youtube.com/Taeler Hendrix, barnesandnobles.com and amazon.com. You can find my children's ebook, It's Not Easy Being a Sloth by Taeler Hendrix, and that soon will be on audible.com. You can find me on Twitter with @Taeler_Hendrix and Instagram with @TaelerHendrixROH. I am very sorry, not everything's the same. There was fake me's on the platforms before the real me's were. Until next time, everybody.